Hello, today we are going to paint out some beautiful little winter trees that are very Bob Ross inspired, where I'm taking some of his techniques that he uses with oils and translate them to how I paint in watercolor. I'm going to start with a stem for a tree. And the next part is important. So we want to let that dry for a moment, but I want to show you this brush. This is the brush I'm going to be using. It's an older acrylic brush that's seen some wear and tear. I want to note, see how this edge is a little bit rugged and jagged? It's not something pretty. So that's what you're looking for in your studio, is something that's a little used, because we want this jagged edge. That's going to be the key to what we're doing. I'm going to come here and I'm going to get just a little bit of a sap green with a little water on it. If it feels too watery, I'm going to go ahead and dry some of that off. And I'm going to come and I'm going to just tap it in. And you can see that's a little watery because I'm going to want some of those defined bushes. That's okay. We just go get a little more paint. There we go. And we're going to tap. And then we're just going to tap in our tree stems, letting this brush do most of the work for us. Okay, back and forth. And trees are natural, so they'll have some variation in shape in them. Okay, and I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add one more. And I'm going to vary my green a little bit for my stem. And I'm going to draw a little one right over here to the right, a bit shorter. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing, except for I do want to vary my greens. I'm going to add some darker green to this. Tap right in the top, right there. And then tap to the side, letting it get a little bit wider, making sure to give it some natural space right there, okay? And then I want one right here in the back, I think, coming up, a taller, thinner one. Again, I'm going to vary my green and grab a slightly different green. Make this one close in. Right here. Nice tall tree, okay? And I can show you how I stick one behind. Again, I'm varying my green, so I've grabbed a slightly different green to start this with. And tap at the top. I think I'm going to make this one a little bit skinnier of a tree. And kind of tuck him back in there. Okay, there we go. So I've got 3 starter trees. And at this stage, I want to make sure that things are nice and dry before I move on, because I don't want anything to blend. So I'm going to grab my fan and dry that real quick. Okay, now I started with that sap green, so I'm going to grab some of that, but I definitely want to darken it just a little bit. So I'm going to add some darker color in there. And I'm going to come back in. Now, here's the key. I don't want to cover all of that light green I've done. Just want to add some deeper spots to it. So again, I'm going to tap in, but not quite everywhere. And if it's not dark enough, go ahead and grab some darker color, because we're looking to create some variation in our tree. The darkest part's really going to be at this bottom. So I want to make sure I've got lots of pigment down there, because we're going to pull some of that away in a little bit. Just kind of tapping in as I see fit. And now this tree back here doesn't stand out very much, but don't worry about that. We're going to fix it. So again, we're going to grab a slightly different green than we started with. We're going to come back in, just tap in on that one. Right in there. And make sure we got lots of dark right at that bottom, okay? And then for that dark one, I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of a blue to get it nice and deep, because I want to make sure I've got a real dark one, so it pushes this one back and it doesn't blend. Okay, I've just tapped on top, Trying not to cover everything I've done before. Okay. So the next step is we go ahead and wash that brush out. And I'm just gonna grab some of this green right from the bottom and move it down my page, okay? Grab that green, move it down from the page. Maybe I wanna just drop a couple little spots, you know, of some greenery going through. And for our next stage, again, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's nice and dry before I come in. All right, so I want to go ahead and add a little bit of water down here. So I'm going to grab myself some pretty soft blues and just really pop in a little bit of a watery color. Some variation in it, as though we were on the edge of a lake. Okay, maybe a little striation in there. Drop a little color. And go ahead and let that dry. So my next step is, I've got some here, I'm gonna show you in my palette. Right here, I put in, this is white gouache. Gouache is like watercolor in that it's rewettable. If you didn't have white gouache, you could use white acrylic paint or gesso to do this step. It doesn't have to be gouache. I just popped some on my palette earlier. So I want to get it nice and thick on my brush because we are going to add a little bit of snow to this scene. So I've come in here and I'm just going to tap in on the tops of these trees, wherever you think snow would kind of fall. Maybe it wouldn't be so in the center, maybe some come in the front. Just wherever, maybe it fell more on the right side over here. Popping just a little bit of snow right in those dark spots. If you start picking up some green, just get some fresh white on your brush. Popping the snow just as though it were on those tips of those branches right there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in. So the snow wouldn't fall right up against that, but there would definitely be snow out here. This is kind of a dry brush. It's not very wet, so it's going to give me that texture. If you need to add just a little bit more water to make sure you can get some on there. Just adding some snow right in here. So the snow wouldn't fall underneath, right up against the tree. And you'd have some green bits. Maybe it's just a little bit of snow. So some of that green is showing through. Make sure it's nice and thick so it goes on. Get too much water on your brush, dry it off. Okay. Looking for some of those coarse edges, just laying down a little bit of that snow. Maybe I'll extend it over here. And now you can do this with a thin brush. Just come in and get some nice, ooh, my brush had a lot of green. I want to drop some water lines on the edge. Nice thick water lines, nice straight thick water lines. You could also use a paint pen if you wanted to do this. So there we go. In just a few minutes, you have a cute little winter scene that you could put in on the front of a card. Now, here's the thing. This is lovely. It's beautiful. But I like my Christmas cards to be a little extra. So I went ahead and I pulled out some of my beautiful shiny paints. And these are all my sparkles and my pretties. And I am going to go ahead and add some gold bits. I think I'm going to decorate this one right here in front. You could decorate all of them. You could decorate them in any way you wanted. These are all watercolors from Lost Girl Watercolor. I will put a link to her. She is currently making all of my favorite sparkles. She ships out quickly. She's really nice to work with. I highly, highly, highly recommend her. So I'm just, with any sparkles, you need to make sure. I should have sprayed these before my video, but they're nice and wet. So I'm dropping in a little bit of water on them. And I'm mixing a couple of golds together to get a nice thick gold. And I'm just going to drop a little star on here. The top of the tree. And some gold balls. This tree is just going to have gold bits all over it. And when it's nice and thick, these sparkles, this is one of the reasons I like her paints, is I can really layer them. But you could decorate with any color you wanted. You could also come in here with some paint pens, some acrylic. Poscas would sit on here nice. I think I'm going to make this star just a little bit bigger because I want a nice big star up there. There we go. So pretty little Christmas tree, and I still want a little extra. So this is one of my very favorite colors. I'm going to come in here and if you don't want to get your back behind you all wet, just stick this right here in some paper towel and really get this nice. I'm just going to do a tap. Really give this card some sparkle. So it's really snowing and the snow is just sparkling. And if you didn't want the sparkle down here, you just take it while it's wet, do a quick wipe. There we go. I've given it just a little bit extra and you can kind of see some of those sparkles come through. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of painting for the holiday.